Hello everyone, and welcome to a discussion and a reading with author Diane McPhee about the incredible shark crime mystery series that not only are fascinating mysteries, but have a fantastic backstory. Diane's series is published by the nonprofit publishing house Blue Forge Press, and Diane has been so fantastic to agree to talk with us today. So Diane, the first thing that I wanted you to touch on, if you would, is how did you discover writing? When did you begin? And this I see is marked book 1. Are there others already?
It's interesting. It all happened with COVID, and we all know about COVID. And so there I was. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't go to lunch. I couldn't go with my friends and do things at the plays that I go to. And so there I was sitting at home, and I thought, maybe I should write something. I'm a big reader, big reader. And my brother gave me the master class series, and part of them involved authors. And so I got to learn from my favorite authors how they wrote books. And
Masterclass, the platform, of the video learning platform.
Right.
Fantastic.
Right. And so I was listening to them, and they challenge you in their audio to start writing. And I thought, well, okay, I guess I will. And so I started writing short stories. And one of the stories was from my past, and it was about a murder down the street from where I lived. And there was an arson involved and a murder. And so I wrote a short story, and one of my friends said, you know what, you talk about this all the time. You should write a book about it. And so I did. And one book led to another, and now there's 4 books. And my detective is Detective Alan Sharp. And in the first book, he was going to decide if he was going to retire or not, but I won't let him.
Because we won't let Diane. That's really what it is. Diane can't retire, so Alan can't retire.
Right.
There we go.
Exactly.
It's only fair.
Exactly.
So you start, I love that. So there was this thing, COVID.
Yeah.
Then there was this other thing, masterclass. I love those two things coinciding. Those are good things I think good things sprang of that head of Zeus.
Yes.
So with book 1, there are now 4. This is 2024. Do you plan it as like one a year, or you're just like, I write and then do you take a break? What is tell me about your writing schedule.
Oh.
Is it by inspiration? Do you outline?
I get an
Tell
idea.
us everything.
Okay, I get an idea. So the first book, okay, I had the idea, and so I could work on it. I did live in Boston. I did know the streets. I developed these characters. And so then the second book came along, and I decided that Alan needed to come back to the Northwest, or visit the Northwest, because his daughter lived there. And
that's where we are right now, in Washington State.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this involved another murder, a drug murder of 2 teenage children. And that actually happened down the street from where I lived. And so I already had this story.
Yeah.
And so I had Alan come in and investigate this.
Yeah.
This is a murder that has never been solved.
Really?
Now, the one in Boston was solved. Differently than how I did it.
Yes.
But this has never been solved. And so I decided that I wanted to involve the Northwest, and I loved writing about the Northwest because I live here now. And so I thought, I want to write about this, and I want to write about a town that is in denial about drugs. They're in denial.
Yeah.
And how Alan will work his way in and say not only the big city, but actually in these little towns, there's a lot of drugs. So that was the second book. And then Alan was just still in my mind. I'd wake up, Alan, okay, what are we going to do? And the third book is about a kidnapping and murder. And this is made up, but I actually brought people from my past into the book. questions and try to help solve it, try to help the detectives. And it pretty much took off because I already had a relationship with Alan. And so I knew that I wanted to involve, him with he's back in Boston.
Yes.
With the people who I knew. And then the fourth book developed, and this is probably, I would say this is my favorite, but it's my tender-hearted book because it involves the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And in this book, a policeman gets killed. Right away, a policeman gets killed.
Yeah.
The two work with each other in a way. It's a cold time of year in Boston, and they work the investigations work together. But I really researched homelessness. I read books. I watched videos. I went on the internet and explored, especially in the town of Boston, and sad. It was sad. I was touched by it. And so I hope that came across in my book.
I think it did.
That this is everyone's problem.
Right.
And these are our people. These are our people.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel very tenderhearted about that book. And so that's 4. And
so book 1 is Taken by Surprise. Book 2 is
Capable of Murder.
Book 3,
A Possible Danger.
And book 4 is Dead of Winter. Yes. And also there is a tabletop storytelling narrative game based on Dead of Winter. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I find it really powerful that, one, you definitely lean into each idea, each spark of an idea. You research fully. I think I've had people say before, well, it's fiction. And I'm like, authenticity, come on.
Right.
But these aren't just fantastically paced page-turner mysteries, though they are. You have a heart in each of these. I don't want to say a message, because they don't come across that way at all.
No.
But I think just these are topics that really do speak to all of us, because they're about the community.
Right. Exactly. And Alan's involvement with it. Because,
Yes.
you learn a lot of, each book you learn more and more about Alan. And his feelings about, how the world is changing, how people interact with each other, how his policemen work a job, the investigation. He watches and listens and then responds to it. And he's such a good-hearted guy.
Yeah.
That you want to know more.
Yeah.
I think that people want to know more.
I think so, yeah. After reading the first book, and I like to give the first book as a gift, which, I love doing as a publisher, but I have yet to run into someone that doesn't then continue reading the series, because I'm like, Alan seems so real, like based on a real person type real. Now, and I'm sorry, because I cut you off, because I wanted to hear all of the different titles so that you guys can all find them. But talk to me about your writing schedule. So you get this idea, this spark of idea, you research.
Research.
And then what is your writing day like?
I usually give about 3 hours, really sit down to write.
Yeah.
And that's about all I can do when I start wandering, my mind wanders and I stop.
Mm-hmm.
But at one point I rented a small office and would go there, for 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And once I got started, once I got the idea in my head, then it was a matter of sitting down, and I do not outline.
Okay.
I just write what will happen next. What will Alan think?
Mm-hmm.
Where is he now? And how is the weather? What's going on? Who's talking to him?
Yes.
And a lot of my books are dialogue.
Yes.
And I need myself to know what's going on. I need to follow the line. And I go day by day. That's another thing, the chapters are built on day by day.
Yes.
And so I know, what happened today? and who did he meet and what did he do?
Yeah, so it literally does. Instead of like chapter 1, it'll say like Saturday,
Right.
May 14th.
Right. And I may fall into some rabbit holes as I do this. And that's kind of the danger of all of a sudden the days go by and I have been everywhere, looking at things.
Yeah.
And then I come out and go, what did I learn? What did I do? I also, when I write a story, every May there is an author in England who gives a prompt a day to writers. And for the past 2 years I've been doing that, taking a prompt that she gives in the month of May, and I write a scene for the book, for the next book.
I love that.
And so no matter what her prompt is, it will become a scene in the book.
That is so fun.
Yeah.
Do you know the author's name off the top of your head?
Julie. I darn no.
All right. Well, you know what, Diane, if you will email us
I will.
her name, I would love to include that and give her a
Yes.
little shout out in the video description.
Wonderful.
That is a great idea.
Yeah, and that way it's just things that you wouldn't even think about.
Right.
Like the phone rings and it's someone you haven't talked to in 10 years. It's the prompt. And so I'm going,
Wonderful.
who did Alan talk to? Who does Alan need to talk to? And so I will make a phone call. And
That's kind of cool. It's almost like a little challenge.
right, it's a challenge, a 30-day challenge. So for 30 days, then I've got 30 scenes ready to go. And in fact, for book 5 right now, I've got 30 scenes ready to go. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, and I know we're going off on a slight bird walk as it is, but Blue Forge Press does this project called Prompt, where for 13 months, an author on the first day of each month is sent a prompt, and then they write a short story on that prompt, and then at the end of the 13 months, they also do an interview about how a written interview about the process, and all of the stories are collected in a 5-volume set of all the authors who participated, but also all of the stories each author wrote are collected into their own personal collection, and the collected volumes that have all the authors, those sell into universities and high schools, and the individuals are a short story collection that the author then has out in the world. But it never, I love this idea of a prompt a day.
Right.
And it's really, our prompts are more an atmosphere, whereas these prompts that Julie seems to be doing are more like you get a call from, and that's interesting
Yes,
to me.
yes.
It's like a spark of an idea,
Exactly.
and that's fascinating. And
So
what a
I-
fun, so do you tend to then write in May?
I write every day in May. Every day in May.
Love
Because
that.
I do every, and I'm committed to doing that. And it's so inspiring because pretty soon I get to
Yeah.
thinking that this will be part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I have Ellen on my shoulder going, okay, go ahead, do that one.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's great. I even introduce new characters. If the prompt comes up and I go, well, the phone call, I could say, we haven't met this person. He hasn't talked to him in 10 years.
Right.
And so we get to meet somebody new. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you, I mean, this is the first, I am Diane's publisher, and this is the first I am hearing of this fantastic idea, so you guys are just gonna have to put up with me being amazed. Have you considered sending her one of the books and saying thank you?
Oh, I haven't thought about it.
That
I
might
haven't-
be so fun.
I
She
know.
might very well decide
Yeah.
to say, hey, look at this, all 4 of these fantastic books by this fantastic person
I
an
told
ocean
her, I mean, I
away.
put the comment.
Yeah.
So I said I've used this in my books. I've used this in my books.
Yes.
And
Yes, you've
but-
used in your books. Your books have been published and are available all over the
It's a good
world.
idea.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you write in May,
Yes.
and by the end of May, do you find then the book is the writing draft is complete?
Well, I also am reading mysteries along the way.
Gotcha.
And like the next book is going to be about a cold case.
A cold case. Okay.
So I have got all these cold cases on video. I mean, on TV. I'll look them up, and when
Yeah.
someone says something, I'll write it down and say, "Oh, I didn't. This is what a detective would say in a cold case." And so I'll write that phrase down.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got like pages and pages of just comments and ideas written down. And so I am collecting those. Like one of my collections is called Alan's Philosophy. And so as I go through and I look through all the things that I've saved, little expressions or thoughts, I will put it down as Alan's Philosophy. Then I've got pages marked cold case and how exactly they do the cold case. What is a murder book? How does that work? And when do they have to go back to it? And how many boxes are in the evidence room and for cold cases? And I learned all that by watching TV. And then I read books about cold case. Like Harry Bosch does great cold cases. And so I read Harry Bosch, Michael Connelly. And then I learn about how the detective proceeds in that kind of investigation when, years ago they didn't have DNA. And so this is a big deal, or fingerprinting, or things like how far back can we go?
Yeah.
How far back can we go to cell phones, to the internet? How far back can we go? And so I'm developing this cold case for Alan.
Oh, I love it. Woo! Woo!
It's a lot. It's fun. It's fun. It's really fun.
And I love that you're now moving, full force into book 5, and you're still like, it's fun, and it should be.
Yeah.
We should not be bored by our main characters. We should not be, should I write another? It should be something you're like, I cannot wait to begin the next story. I also just keep circling back to this idea of, and I cannot impress this upon viewers and readers and writers enough, research. So many times, my senior editor, Diane DiMarco, and I will sit down with an author for the first time, and I'll say, well, who do you read in your genre? Oh, no, I don't want to be influenced. And that is a huge red flag for us. Because to me, the difference between someone who is a writer, who in my mind, I'm not putting down that word, but in my mind, a writer is someone who just likes to write and dabble, and an author is someone who knows when they sit down, this is going to be out in the world. I am going to publish it. You can self-publish it, you can publish it with a nonprofit press or with a corporate press, whatever, but that's the only difference, to me. I always think, this person is a writer, they are not an author. Because to me, an author knows their genre, inside and out, researches their topics, inside and out. And what makes them an author is that they can have all this knowledge of what has come before in their mind, and what they create is not derivative. Their own creativity, talent, drive, their own perspective on the world, on the topic, shape a unique narrative. And I feel like with Alan Sharp, that is what you've done. I want to circle back now.
Okay.
Philosophies of Alan Sharp. In my head, you're saying that, I'm imagining a tiny pocket-sized book that looks like a little manila file folder.
Oh, okay.
We know we would all carry them in our back pockets, right?
Right.
Because is life not a mystery? Are we all not solving mysteries every day? Okay. Another interesting thing, and I know that, again, talking about my senior editor, Brianne, she loves to do this, and I always support her in this, but I don't know of any other press that does it. The first and second book were released at the same time. I love that idea because it tells readers right away, you're dedicated. This is a series. Do you have any end in sight for Alan, or is this like a J.A. Jance, or something that it's just open-ended?
I get J.A. Jance's newsletter, and she's 80, and she's on her 65th book.
Yes, does everyone know that? Yes. I actually, I had a tour date that overlapped with J.A. Jance, and we wound up doing a signing. And I'm like, I was a science fiction writer, she was obviously mystery.
Yeah.
Delightful. But that was 35 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. She's amazing. She's amazing. I can see it like almost year to year. It's like, okay, now we're on another year, Alan, another season.
Yes.
Like, the dead of winter was so cold.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you felt it.
Yes.
You
and I
felt
wanted,
it.
I wanted that, and I wanted summer in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
So, people were responding to that. It was just the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
And so people were just kind of getting outside. and I wanted that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to have to decide with the next book. You know, what time of year is this?
Yeah.
And what was your question?
Oh, do you see any end in sight for
Do I see-
Alan?
okay, yeah.
Because I know that
Okay,
you
now
kind
I'm
of
into
begin. He was
weather.
on the brink of retirement. And
I think he's going to continue now.
Yeah.
I'm bringing in a new detective in book 5 who is very snarky.
oh,
Yes, a woman. And she is just like, no. And so he is going to like step back and go, what do you mean? As
Yeah.
opposed to the profiler who I brought in who was so sophisticated and was
Yes.
so, you know, elegant.
Yes.
And now I'm going to bring in this Starkey character who is going to just call everything.
okay.
And so I look at books like that, like who can I bring in to get it out?
Yes.
To make him think, like his daughter
Yes.
made him think, like somebody else, like the sheriff in the Northwest. I just bring in that
Mhm.
character, and then it becomes fun.
Yes. Yes.
It's more fun to see how he reacts.
I want to avoid the pun, but I have to use it. I mean, it's. I feel like you give Alan these incredible foils to keep him sharp.
Sharp.
Yeah, I mean,
I know.
yeah, I know you guys. Mom joke. What can I say? You know, but it is true. I mean, I really do see that. Is that not just the solving of the mystery, the discovery, the investigation of the case, but the people he interacts with is fascinating, and also really keeps the pace and the reader so engaged. Okay, all right. I gotta stay on my questions. Oh, okay. In terms of creating Alan, was he inspired by someone or someones in your life? Talk to me about creating the Alan. Where was the first? I mean, I understand the idea of writing came to you because of COVID and the mask, but why Alan?
In my youth in Boston, I had a very good friend who was a professor of mine, and we enjoyed each other's company, and then we both went our own ways, you know, and he did what he did, and he was a humanistic educator.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of the internet, I looked him up, and we got together again, and he had just written a manuscript. He turned 65, and he just had written a manuscript talking about what he felt like being
Yeah.
65.
Yeah.
Well, I liked him so much. I really loved this man, and so I decided he was Alan. And he has this manuscript, and I got to read what he thinks about being 65, and I'm like, he's Alan.
Right.
He's Alan. And so that was my character. And I still think of him today as being my person.
Yes.
Person who I know so well. How he would react. I know how he would react to this.
Yes.
And so I'm not afraid of using his person because I know him so well.
Yes. And have you sent him the books? No. Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
After
what a
we got-
story.
After we got together, we got like 6 months later.
What an incredible legacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see why publishers should talk with their authors more often? Do you have any of the books dedicated to him, Diane?
The second book is dedicated to the person I used for his love interest,
Yeah.
Maggie.
Yeah.
I mean, who he met, not love interest, but he met Maggie in
Yeah.
the second book.
Yeah.
Is a friend of mine who I knew very well, and we raised kids together, and then we both went our separate ways.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to use her. And so I looked her up to get in touch with her.
Okay, and I think we need to stay with this for a minute, because we don't need to be sitting here and saying our birth years or anything like that for it to be, I think, clear to the author. So you did not write novels until 2020,
Right.
and then we had a worldwide pandemic. You know, just in case you guys didn't know,
Yeah.
and you decided, okay, I'm gonna write these novels. So you are the last event that I had actually right here in this space, this amazing Orca Books venue, was with our author T.G. Sparks, who is in his 20s, I believe, early 20s, late teens.
16.
Oh my
What?
God.
See, there we go. This
Well,
is it.
he's about to do the last 2 years of high school.
There we go.
He's about to start the last 2 years of high school.
And this is, and actually that is so perfect, Brienne. I have, everyone who works with me knows that I am not great at age. You know, I'll look at someone and go, why is this, as this 9-year-old ringing me up at this store? You know, this kind of thing. But to say it is never too late to literally embark upon something completely new. I think last Saturday I could have said, talking with TG, it's never too early. It is literally about what you are passionate about. And I love this idea that here is this friend of yours, this individual in your life, who has the courage to write about what it is, what it feels like to be 65. And I always thought that's what I love, that's what struck me first about Taken by Surprise and Alan Sharp, is we always get these detectives, you know, at the prime of their life, there's, you know, height of their game, and he's kind of like, can I really still do this? Is this what I need to be doing at this point in my life? It's okay to ask those questions. There's no shame in asking those questions. Just as there is no shame in saying, I think I'm going to start a novel now.
None of my family believes it. You know, I never said I was going to be a writer.
Yeah.
I just am.
Yes, you are.
I just am.
And so driven and full, and what a fantastic writing day that you've developed for yourself, the schedule. Now, I want to circle back to that as well. Now, when you would say that you would, you know, stay focused and write for 3 to 4 hours,
Okay.
do you write, research a little, write a little more, research a little, or do you have your research time and your writing time separate?
No, it all happens together.
All happens
I'll
together.
stop and say, I don't know.
Yes.
And so then I'll go look up something and go, oh, I see. This is how police do it. And I'll go, okay, we're going to write about how police really do it.
Yeah.
I mean, things like that I wanted to be accurate.
Yes.
So that helps, and it's a, I'm not saying formula, but it's like a way that I can.
A method.
A method.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And style.
Yes. Yes.
A style.
Absolutely.
And I've got it down. It's like I know, and so I look into this book now. I'm realizing that this is how it's going to go.
Yes.
In my head, I don't write it down. I go in my head. This is how I'm going to begin. I'm almost ready. I'm not ready yet, but I'm almost ready.
What will tell you? What will tell you that you are ready?
I'm almost ready. The short stories that I wrote.
Yes.
I have developed this new character, and it's going to be the lead of the story.
Right.
She is bringing him a cold case, and so we have to look at the cold case, and that's going to start it.
Mhm.
And then they're going to meet. So that's, I get that.
Mhm.
And but I'll just, Alan will be part of my life again, and we'll just, you know, carry on and find out.
After your first writing pass, Diane, what's your pattern then? Do you then put the book aside for a month, or then go back to it? Do you read it aloud? Do you have a beta reader? Do you send it right to Brienne?
Oh, no. I have an editor.
Mhm, mhm.
And of course, my sisters get to read it.
Yes.
And my daughter.
Yes.
My sisters and my daughter, and my very best friend.
Yes.
Okay, my very best friend is the editor.
Mhm.
And I thought that with the first book, here are a few things that I found. And she sent me back 3 single-spaced edits on 3 pages. And I was like, and she goes, I'm sorry, but, and I'm like, oh my God.
Look at all these holes. Yeah, or your potential. Yeah.
Plurals.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
words that I have misused.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
laid, you know,
Yeah.
lie,
Yeah.
and things like
Mhm.
that. And she's so precise.
Mhm.
And so every single book
Mhm.
has been edited by her, and I have the 3rd book is dedicated to her.
I think that's appropriate. At Blue Forge, we call that blue pencil and red pencil. So what Diana's doing is she's basically having a master reader, her best friend, who goes through after Diana's done with the manuscript and Diane's gotten it as clean as she can get it. Then you bring in another set of eyes before you send it to your publisher, and they do basically a blue pencil pass. So that's grammar, spelling, punctuation, and sometimes if there's like a factual error that they catch or a plot hole, like, oh, you said it was Saturday here, but actually it's something like that.
Yeah.
And we always encourage our authors, never hire a freelance editor who's going to also like take apart the plot or something like that. Don't do that, because art is subjective, and what that paid editor would have you do may not be what the editor at your press wants you to do. But in terms of, blue pencil and having that great set of eyes and someone who loves the series, loves the character, that's another reason why I love hearing that it's your best friend.
Yes.
Is that unfortunately with some freelance editors, it's like they're not dedicated to the series, or they've got too many series in their head, so it just doesn't come out quite the same. And then after the manuscript comes in, our editor will do a red pencil pass. And sometimes Brienne will catch little things and she'll just correct them, grammar, spelling, But primarily what she's looking for are plot holes. So we'll have like someone said a city was in one state, but it's actually in another, things of that nature. Oh, I like that. And then, your master reader brings you the changes, my gosh.
Yes.
3 pages, single space.
Yes.
You implement those changes,
right.
and do you do any other revision at that stage?
The revisions in the editing, that does take a long time.
Yeah.
Because I go back so many times and go, that isn't working. Or that, I don't want him to, I'm going to take this and put it up there.
Yeah.
Instead.
Yeah.
Because that follows better.
Mm-hmm.
And it just takes so much time. And I think about it, of course, when I'm writing a book, I'm thinking about it all the time. But editing takes a couple, I'm going to say months.
Yes, I would. Thank you. And that's, you guys, just so you know, all the aspiring authors out there, that's what a publisher wants to hear. And so too often we hear, I finished the book and sent it right into you guys. And I'm like, why would you send me your first draft?
Yeah.
This is not putting your best foot forward. As authors, we have to take a book as far as we can take it before we hand it to our press's editor. That is really our job, not just blah, on the page, turn it in. No, we can't just write it all stream of consciousness, not edit. And if you say, well, I don't know how to edit, get books, watch videos on YouTube. It is one of the skills. That would be like a police officer saying, well, I don't know how to fill out a crime report. There are certain skills you have to be an author. Now, you do not have to have those skills to be a writer. I always say anyone who loves writing can be a writer. But to be an author, self-editing is a huge part of what we do. Okay. Gosh, I love that. Diane says all the right things, which is why Diane has had 4 books published in 4 years. That's the way it works. As quickly as she can write them, we are publishing them. They're not only fantastic stories, but they are well presented. They're in great shape when they are turned into. I think one of the only major issues that I remember Brienne ever catching and talking with you about was like the way a character was using like an Uber app or something like that. Like that was it. That is what an editor wants to see. Okay. Mysteries. Was there a reason why you went mysteries instead of, romance? Or
I read a lot of mysteries, but I mean, I also read a lot of mysteries.
Yeah.
That
you're a reader.
Absolutely.
Capital
I read
R.
like 3 books at a time.
Wow.
But I think that because romance is the #1 book that's out there, #1.
Yeah.
#2 is crime.
Yeah.
And so I thought, hey, know, I have these mysteries in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have these two things that happen.
Yes.
And I'm going to be I'm going to be writing about them. I guess I'm going to write mysteries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of that, if something else had happened, this was so important to me. These two things are so important. They stayed with me for so long.
Yeah.
There was no reason why I wouldn't write about them.
Yes.
So,
Was it your daughter who had said to you? I know you just mentioned, Mom, you're always talking about this,
my
this
friend,
murder.
yeah.
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 Okay.
yeah.
And I think that is important because so often we'll have authors say they've taken a workshop or they've hired a writing guru or something, and the person says, all right, look at what's trending. And I'm like, never look at what's trending. Ask yourself, what am I passionate about? What can I not let go of? And that's what I love. You're like, here's this story that really happened to you. They kept coming back to. It's almost as if Alan was whispering in your ear. He was just waiting for you to discover him through the manuscript of your friend.
Right, exactly. This all fell into place.
Oh.
It all fell into place. And I'm just like, I guess I'll do something about this.
Yes.
And the second book about the two teenagers who were murdered happened down the street from my house. You know, it's like, how can I not be a part of that and not worry about what's going on?
Yeah.
And so I knew I had to write about that.
Yeah.
I knew I did. So, I mean, so then I had to then think about something else that I worried about. I worry about teenage, kidnapping. I worry about single women going out on their own.
Homelessness.
And, I worry about the homelessness. So those are on my mind. And so that's what I brought forward.
So again, what is it for you? Again, I'm just like speaking to all those aspiring authors out there. That is that thing that you keep returning to. Because I think that is why we get excited when Diane turns in a book. And as publishers, I wish that I could say we get excited about every book that comes in, but it's simply, we get hundreds of submissions every month. But if I see Diane in my inbox and there's that little paper clip that says something is attached, I know it's going to be a good day. And I always, one of our last questions, I always say is, there are 600,000 books published every year in the US alone. And we receive hundreds of submissions every month, but we only publish about 10 books a year. How do the sharp crime mysteries break stereotypes and speak for those not spoken for? But I think we've already addressed all of that. I mean, we really have.
Yeah.
Alan is not a whippersnapper. He questions, am I doing the right thing? Is this what I should be doing? Am I still on top of my game? He makes the communities where he is investigating, he makes them look at themselves. Because, we all should. To live examined lives. And I think that, to me, that's why he shines as a fantastic literary character, is that he just comes across as completely authentic. Like, it's nonfiction. And I applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Diane is going to read to us a segment from Book One, Taken by Surprise, and then we are going to take some questions from the audience.
Alan has found out that his informant, Marco Miller, has died in a fire, and actually he had been murdered. And so he has decided that he would be the investigator because this is his person. And so I'm going to read you a little bit about his feelings about Marco. Alan's heart ached as he considered what a tragedy this would be for so many people. Marco Miller was well known and respected throughout the area, with a wide network of community contacts and friends. He was a popular figure and mentored teens who battled addiction, spending hours helping them get to meetings and treatment. He was also employed designing gowns for his friends in the gay community. Alan often called him the Renaissance Man, an older expression that made Marco laugh. Everyone was going to be shocked and saddened to know he was gone. Whoever started the fire knew that Marco was there. Even if they hadn't killed him, they likely tripped over his body. Letting out a deep sigh and using more force than necessary, Alan kicked back his chair, stomped to the ancient file cabinet across the room, and yanked out his personal folder on Marco Miller. When Alan sat back down, he shifted his weight to one side and noticed a slight ache in his chest. His steady habit of burgers and tacos had finally caused bodily reactions like acid reflux. At 5'11", 240 pounds, most of it dangerously in his belly, Alan had recently been warned by his doctor to start watching his diet. Recalling his many sleepless nights, he angrily contemplated his ongoing insomnia, which had been just a struggle of 40-minute naps. He was close to retiring at 64 and was annoyed at these obvious challenges of aging. But Alan refused to sink into the rut of regret, depression, or despair, like many of his peers he overheard talking. He wasn't ready to slow down yet. Pushing aside the stacks of file folders and papers littering his desks, Alan worked his way steadily through the file on Marco. Cursing when he realized he didn't have a current address for him, Alan remembered to make a note that the files needed updating. This was another frustrating problem for the entire precinct that had to be remedied. His chair made a loud squawking sound as he leaned back and rang Lloyd Randall, the pathologist. Randall answered immediately. Yes, I'm certain. We have Marco's dental records. I'm wondering, Alan, I've noticed that several Boston precincts have cases dealing with deaths that appear to be caused by arson, but maybe homicides related to drugs. I've had a few cases recently where someone tried to cover up a homicide by setting the building on fire. I wonder if this might be a connection to Marco's being in that building. We all know the work you two are doing with the teen addicts. Randall let out a deep sigh. I'm just putting in my 2 cents worth so you can catch the bastards who set this fire and killed your friend.
That's perfect. I think what I love about that particular segment is that it it perfectly symbolizes it covers everything we just talked about. You know, Alan is a very real man, 64-year-old man, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe a kale salad instead of 7 tacos,
Right.
and you know, maybe not a double tall latte after 7 anymore, you know, or whatever it is.
I know.
And I identify with him, but also, and here he is going about, but still pushing forward. And the world that he inhabits as a detective, he has to deal with some really dark stuff. You know, how was this person different? By their dental records? No, I'm absolutely sure. That's his friend. That's someone he knew. You know, and now it's remains. And I think that is, we get how hard that weighs on him, the weight of his job, how much it weighs on him, and I appreciate that.
He's a human. He's a human. He's compassionate.
Yes.
You know, he cares, and that's what I wanted him always to care that much.
Yeah, because I think bookshelves in the mystery section are full of stoic, closed off detectives that, you know, they break down once a series and that's it, you know, or, you know, and I'm just like, I don't believe that for a minute. I believe that these men and women deal with this stuff day in and day out, and it's something they're thinking about, it's on their mind, it's haunting their dreams, they're thinking about it over coffee, they're thinking about it while they're eating that 7th taco or the kale salad, and for Alan, it's just very believable. It is integrated into his entire life, and he has to live with that darkness and try to shed some kind of light as he can. Brienne, do you have, as senior editor at Blue Forge Press, but also specifically the editor that works with Diane, is there anything that you want to say or ask or add to about the series? Or ask Brienne or ask Diane?
I don't know if it's particularly as senior editor. I think
Yeah.
just as a reader
Sure.
and someone interested in the series, I have a few questions.
Yes, please.
So Diane, do you find titling your books difficult? Does it come to you easily? Do you have them before you start writing? Do you have to write the whole thing and then go, what am I going to call this? What is
That is
kind
a
of your
really
process
good
with titling?
question. I've been asked that before. I write down phrases, like I said, Alan's philosophy. I also write down phrases that I like, and Taken by Surprise was a phrase I like. And I was going through all my notes, and there's pages and pages of notes that I have, and I was going through them and looking for what would be the title, and then I found that. And so that's how I do it. I think of something that's repeated over and over again, like Capable of Murder. They kept saying, Joel's not capable of murder. And so I decided that would be the title. And A Possible Danger, I did have that phrase written down. But I also knew that these two people were so vulnerable that there was always a possible danger for them. And so that's how I do it. I think after it's done. Yes, after it's done. Yes.
Taken by
I love
Surprise,
that.
A Possible Danger, Capable of Murder, Dead of Winter. I mean, they have a cadence, and they're very memorable. They're very catchy. I don't know. It's like Ellen Sharp. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rhea.
Okay, unrelated. Another question. If you were casting Alan in a film, and you could just pick anybody, and they had to say yes, who do you imagine? Is there anyone that you imagine in your mind that looks like Alan?
Okay, we have George Clooney and Tom Hanks, which,
Oh, okay.
they're not Alan, but I
Yeah.
still like them, and that would be a hit, right?
Oh, I see that. No, I could see that.
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
had the picture of Bill Pullman, the actor Bill Pullman was up on my board when I was writing it, and I thought, he's not a familiar, he's a second actor, a secondary actor, but I've always liked him. I always thought he was very sincere, so his picture was up when I was writing.
Cool.
I like that.
Oh, I love that. I just love hearing how authors see their characters in their heads. Because one of the things that I love is like when I read a book, and I just am gonna assume that everyone does this, you really kind of create an image in your head of like what the character looks like.
Yeah.
But as the author, like you're the person who crafted them to begin with. So I love hearing that. That's very cool.
I actually had all of the characters, I had pictures of them on my board in the first book.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Diane, you continue to impress me. You guys, this is
You haven't
this is
known
Diane's
this.
masterclass of
You haven't known all
how to
this
just
stuff.
wake up and be like, I think I'm going to become an author in the right way. That is fantastic. I love that.
And do you find that you relate a lot to Alan, or do you find it difficult or interesting, or how do you feel about writing a character that is a different gender from you? Does that play into it at all, or is it kind of just like, and he's a guy?
That's a good question, because I want to be certain that I have strong women in my books too. And so because I love Alan, I love him because I love my friend. He will always be my main character, but I want him to interact with strong women, or to bring women along, and help them. Like the third book, Carmen, the detective Carmen, who took his place while he was in the Northwest. I wanted her to be a strong woman and could not overwhelm him, but he could look up to. And so that's always part of it, was, from a woman's point of view, this is how I see Alan. From a woman's point of view, I guess. From my friend's point of view, I guess. I'm writing it from that perspective. I never thought about it. I think it's
Cool.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of like putting yourself in his shoes and then writing from there.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's cool.
Yeah. I I don't know if I've ever actually met an author who has so, like you said, I mean, your friend really wrote like a treatise, the treatise of Alan's mental state, and that is just so. Did he ever publish the manuscripts? Did he?
He did. He was a writer. He published like 24 different books, but they're all textbooks because he was an educator.
Yeah.
And so he wrote one mystery that I had the manuscript, and he never published it. And because I had the manuscript, I sent it to his daughters.
Yeah.
And I said, "You want this?"
Yeah.
And but he didn't publish it. No. He would be so proud of me.
Yes.
He would be like,
You kidding? I can imagine him like coming, like dressed as Alan to your events.
absolutely.
I mean,
He would
wait,
do that.
who's that? Right around the corner, like kind of thing.
There you
Oh yes, absolutely, 100%. And I know I already used this word, but just what an amazing legacy! A legacy that you are creating for yourself with this human, relatable character who just does such incredible things in every community where he is investigating, but also a continuing legacy of your friend. And Diane, thank you for talking with us today. And you guys can find this incredible book, Taken by Surprise, by Diane M. McPhee, right here at Orca Books or wherever fine books are sold. Thank you so much. And thank you, Brianne, for asking such fantastic questions and for filming this for all of you.